You know what I disliked the most about the live-action remake? They added a new version of He Lives in You, and after the Ubokosibokoko, there was no Wait on your naces with okay, wait! God damn it, I expect my wait on your naces with okay, wait! Welcome, greetings all. Dr. M here once again to cover another animated classic. The first of many by Disney I intend to eventually cover on this channel. Not all of their movies deserve the label, but this one certainly bears inclusion as a pop culture masterwork. And yes, okay, let's deal with this first. Disney probably were planning this as a reimagining of Kimba the White Lion at an early stage. But a lot of the times you see side-by-side comparisons of the two properties, it's actually quite a stretch to say the thing on the left is similar to the thing on the right. It's just very superficial similarities that aren't borne out by the respective narratives. And after all, that's kind of what Disney do. They take an established story like The Little Mermaid or The Snow Queen or, you know, the actual life of Pocahontas, and they just make up their own story that's loosely based on it. One day I'll do a Kimba video and talk a little more about the totally different approaches. I mean, pretty much anything that Tezuka Osamu ever created probably does deserve a video on this channel after all. As I explained in my video about Mononoke Hime or Princess Mononoke, I have a lot of love for animation. And obviously, unarguably, Disney's influence on the world of animated storytelling is unparalleled. Yes, Disney is this kinda scary corporate megalith now, with perhaps kind of alarming levels of influence on global culture through its lion's share of the world's media companies. But all that was only made possible by their roots in animation. Cartoons that for my whole life people have dismissed as trivial kids' entertainment led to one of the world's most successful companies. And while not every one of their films is a classic, looking at you, Home on the Range, in my opinion, The Lion King is the studio's finest work. It's by far my favourite of the Disney cinematic catalogue, which I have seen next to all of by this point. And I'd go so far as to say it's one of my favourite animated movies of all time. Top 5 easily. No, top 3, no regrets. And with the so-called live-action remake having hit cinema screens not so very long ago now, to a mixed reception, I think it's time for me to look at TLK and what it means to me. Few people are likely to need a synopsis, but in brief, the King of the Lions, Mufasa, rules over his kingdom, the Pride Lands, with dignity and wisdom. His queen, Sarabi, is at his side, and we open the story with the birth of his son and heir. Mufasa rules not just over the lions, but over all the animals in his purview, including, you know, the prey animals that presumably scream at him to stop as he tears them apart for food. The circle of life. That's not the particular bit of overthinking I'm going to pursue in this video, though when we get to the Lion Guard, it actually becomes a lot harder to sweep that particular problem under a handsome throw rug. Now, Mufasa's son, the adorable cub Simba, grows up mischievous and headstrong, with his friend, also his preordained affianced, Nala, whose father we just have to assume is some other lion we don't see, and no, trying to apply the rules of how actual prides of lions operate to the society we see in this film doesn't really work out that well if you want to keep your sanity. Anyway, for all that Simba is a cute little fuzzbutt who doesn't necessarily realise the implications of I just can't wait to be king, his succession is not necessarily about to go unchallenged. First in line until the little hairball was born is Scar, the king's brother, whose real name is Taka, which means trash in Swahili, and is also my boss's name, come to think of it.
But Mufasa just nicknamed me Scar, then I knew that he shouldn't be king.
He has his eyes set on the throne, so arranges a clever, somewhat convoluted coup. He has his hyena accomplices start a stampede in a gorge, trapping Simba there. Mufasa comes to his son's rescue, and Scar makes sure he doesn't get back out of that situation. He sets the hyenas on Simba too. The only reason his plan doesn't work out long term being that he leaves his dirty work to his hench creatures, basically solely for a chance to ham it up in front of a distraught little cub. As it happens, Simba escapes, meeting the carefree duo Timon and Pumbaa, and growing up in an idyllic jungle on a diet of bugs, which for some reason, unlike mammals and birds, won't beg for their lives as you sink your teeth into them. Or maybe they do, but their little bug voices aren't loud enough to matter. I said I wasn't going to overthink this aspect, didn't I? Inconveniently, though conveniently for our plot, the Pride Lands fall into ruin during this period. Mismanaged by Scar, but also as a result of the weather going into pathetic fallacy overdrive. Oh, we like a bit of pathetic fallacy on this channel. Wait, does that sound weird? Roaming further in search of food, Nala meets Simba and recognizes him. And hearing about his home, Simba is also reminded of his responsibilities. And eventually, with a little simian and meteorological intervention, he is convinced to go back and confront his uncle. Now, this is primarily a literature channel, and yes, much has been made of the similarities of this plot to Hamlet.
Good night, sweet prince.
Right down to comparing Timon and Pumbaa to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. A bit of a stretch. But the story is unique enough to seem more homage than rip-off. Not that, of course, Shakespeare would have much of a leg to stand on if he saw fit to complain about lifting other people's stories. But yes, a broad outline of Hamlet with less suicide and accidental murder, seen through the lens of Tezuka's Kimba, would line up pretty well with the final Lion King product. Still, the twist of having this throny, gamey sort of a story set in the animal kingdom of an African savanna works so well. The beautiful natural setting also makes for some of the most striking animation and scenery ever animated, particularly since it's to all intents and purposes a world free of human influence. Mufasa's circle of life speech, with the imagined camera panning around father and son, is amongst the best shots traditional animation has to offer, executed with consummate skill by an animation studio at the height of its powers during an impressive renaissance, just a few films before another undignified fall from grace. Looking at you again, home on the range.
This shot is absolutely amazing as well, with the camera panning in one direction while Scar circles Simba in the other. You can see here in the art book how they planned the shot out, with how Scar will move here, and then how the imagined camera will be moving, and then the field of vision that will be captured by the camera, marked here. Really clever stuff. And by the way, this book, The Art of the Lion King, well, I absolutely love it.
Directors Allers and Minkoff did superb work here, especially since a lot of Disney's top animators were focusing on Pocahontas, which was perceived as more prestigious. I first saw The Lion King in the cinema. It was actually a primary school trip. Thinking back, I have no idea how a teacher got away with proposing that as educational for us little ones. Since one of my best friends was the son of that one guy in the local area who could get hold of and sell pirated VHS tapes, relatable content for you 80s and 90s kids there. Hey, remember Blockbuster? Huh? I actually borrowed an illegal videotape from him until we could buy a legitimate copy. When I got that, I watched it over and over, I really did. And this was the original too, back before they fixed that one cloud that just might form a dirty word if you tilt your head just a little. Since then I've got the DVD, I've been to see it in 3D and up on the IMAX screen and gone to the musical adaptation a number of times. Most of us have that one Disney movie that was just there at the right time to play a huge part in our childhoods. And The Lion King was mine. If I sat down and really tried, I'm pretty sure I could transcribe the entire film from memory. Yes, including Natsigonya Mawagit Baba and all the rest of Lebo M's wonderful Isizulu and Sesotho lines. First line of actual dialogue though, well, that's life's not fair, is it? There is actually very little I do not love here. The cast is superb, especially Jeremy Irons, James Earl Jones, Nathan Lane, Rowan Atkinson, Matthew Broderick, Whoopi Goldberg, and Cheech from Cheech and Chong.
You go from Robert Rodriguez, basically, to shoot him up, kill him, all types of stuff, to being the voice of the main characters of many Disney films, from The Lion King to Cars. How does this happen?
God wants it to be that way.
The songs for me just pick those from Aladdin and The Jungle Book to be the best in any Disney film. From the stirring, epic sound of The Circle of Life to actually funny one-liners in the comedy numbers.
You'd write a song, you think it's a great song, and then they'd say, actually, the giraffe that was going to sing that song is now not in the film. So it was a bit of a drag, that.
And I really don't understand why people seem to dislike Be Prepared, which is a marvellous character song with a great little bassoon hook.
To take certain duties on board.
The world needs more bassoon hooks. And yes, Jeremy Irons sung all of it except for that last verse with the big notes. You can tell just from listening, I think. People are too ready to believe that Jim Cummings just sang the whole thing.
It's on me, man, it's on me.
And unlike, it seems, most of the population of the world under the age of 50, I think Elton John is actually a really impressive songwriter. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is actually an album I'll probably do a video on at some point too.
I was horrified to find when I heard it sung by the Warthog. Can you feel the love tonight? It was like, oh my God.
And the way his melodies were adapted here and given more sweeping orchestral scale was just magnificent arrangement work.
What Hans did brilliantly was to orchestrate the songs we'd written.
It's not just the songs either. Hans Zimmer's haunting score adds so much here, with incredibly strong themes that made for really wonderful new songs in the musical version, via Lebo M's adaptations for the Rhythm of the Pride Lands album. Did I mention I'm a fan of this movie? Well, not to fanboy too much. On the negative side of things, well, beyond the ever-present possibility of lion incest bubbling under the surface, well, I think certainly we could have done without all the flatulence jokes from and about Pumbaa. You know, he's already a great, lovable, memorable character without needing that particular character trait. And I remember even as a little kid not finding those jokes particularly funny. But then maybe I was just a tad more prim and proper than the average little kid at the time.
Wait, Wallaby? I'd always considered myself rather popular.
There are also some decisions made that don't date that well, a few of which the remake attempted clumsily to redress. Goose-stepping hyenas may not have been the best of images to impress on little kids, even if we're looking at the bad guys here. Nobody loves too much identity politics, but one criticism I think is valid is that, yeah, even if you have your noblest characters played by black actors, the lowly, villainous hyenas who actually have vocal lines are all very conspicuously played by minorities. Even with really superb comedy performances underpinning these characters, you know, that's not great. Actually, the Lion Guard does make efforts to redress this somewhat, showing that hyenas shouldn't be judged as evil just because they're hyenas, you know.
What's happening? I think I see it in a different light. Could it be maybe that Jaziri is right?
Certainly the craft here isn't without its tiny flaws. Small things I can't help but notice after seeing the film so many times. Like this. Look it. Did you see the error? Look at Nala's feet. Look at her little paws. They go in the water and then whoops, back out. And now you'll notice that every time you rewatch. can't be unseen. Yeah, that's the kind of thing you just don't notice until you've watched the film many, many times. I think more people know about Timon's magically appearing hula, which isn't there when he has his back to the camera, but I feel like that's actually an artistic choice to preserve the moment of surprise. Ultimately, I think one of the things that makes The Lion King work is that Disney was happy to take risks here, partly because this wasn't seen as the big important film, and that was Pocahontas. Whoops. The story contains stark death scenes, scary visuals, and doesn't even introduce its two main comedic characters until halfway through the narrative. Yet, for me, it never feels like the plot is confusing or suboptimal. There is a certain formula being followed, but it is far from by the numbers and staid. Nothing new is not a criticism that I feel can be fairly levelled here, despite the obviousness of the main Shakespearean source for the story. In the end, The Lion King does almost everything right, and what's more, it does it all beautifully. Superb animation, including early use of CG that doesn't look out of place, emotional resonance despite all of the things that could potentially distance us from the emotions of the characters, and a direct, unashamed sincerity that's become much rarer in the years since. Okay, let's end with 6 interesting extra little observations. Number 1, it always kind of amuses me that the last thing the young Simba says is slimy yet satisfying. Adult Simba, meanwhile, is introduced to us not with Matthew Broderick's voice, but by Cam Clarke's singing. Cam Clarke would go on to play Simba in the Timon and Pumbaa series and in Kingdom Hearts 2. Broderick's first actual dialogue begins with a big belch.
Whoa, nice one, Simba. Thanks.
Though, whether he delivered it himself or not, I cannot say. Simba's last line in the film, meanwhile, is "and never return." Number 2, Zazu is animated joining in with Timon and Pumbaa's whooping, though it doesn't seem like they recorded any suitable noise from Rowan Atkinson to put in there. Or maybe they did and they took it out because it sounded too crowded. Number 3, the hidden Mickeys are mostly very well disguised in this film. The only one I always notice when I'm not specifically looking for them is the one on this red insect. Number 4, there's actually a lot of hugging in this film. Adult lions mostly nuzzle, but characters with more obvious arms do a lot of embracing, apart from the more obvious ones like Timon and Pumbaa singing "If He Falls in Love Tonight," or Rafiki's hugs that actually bookend the film. Timon and Zazu hold one another in fear, as do Shenzi and Ed, and more devastatingly, Scar is quick to hug Simba as a cub, in his creepy, ironic way in their first scene together, and then to comfort him after his loss. That's actually the part I find saddest of this entire scene, when Simba pushes his face against his uncle's leg for comfort. That for me is the single most heartbreaking moment of a famously weepy scene. I think it's such a wonderful touch, the sheer injustice of how little Simba doesn't get what happened, and is actually turning to his father's killer for comfort. It's dark, man, it's dark. Number 5, other than not just running when told to at the end, as if he could carry on leading the pride at that stage even if he won the fight, Scar's biggest mistakes all come from his big mouth and his need to gloat. Apart from his lie about the hyenas ultimately leading to his silhouetted demise, twice he can just kill a vulnerable Simba, but twice he feels the need to talk. Gotta keep your mouth shut, man. Number 6. Scar actually carries on "I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts" after Zazu stops. Give him a twist. Really breaking apart this world building might make you wonder how Scar knows this song, or what a showman is, or about the existence of It's a Small World. Similarly, we might have to speculate about how Timon and Pumbaa and Rafiki know the things they do, like The Lion Sleeps Tonight, or what drag, or what the luau is, what French accents are, what Bruce Lee films sound like, what yoga-style meditation poses are, and that's not even mentioning the goose-stepping. Scar even has a basic working knowledge of genetics.
When it comes to brute strength.
I'm afraid I'm at the shallow end of the gene pool.
Honestly, that's all just kind of what mid-90s Disney humor was like. Might as well ask how they know English, or why one brother's accent is from America while the other's is from England. And unlike with similar gags in Aladdin from Robin Williams, I don't think there's a theory to be posited here, that these odd exophoric references actually mean that the film is set in a post-apocalyptic far future. Or is there? Okay, enough. Just some little facts and observations that I imagine most people will not have thought of. And with that, I shall end the video. Back to something highbrow next time, I think. But please do leave a comment to let me know what you thought, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye!